if you, from your house, or especially from your phone, if you are able to move substantial amounts of assets quickly, just in one location, then that means if someone points a gun at you, then they can force you to move those assets over to them or to, one of their compatriots. So that is like the single point of failure that you want to avoid from a security perspective. And the only way to do that is...
Jameson, people don't know this. Well, some people on the internet know, but most of the people here probably won't know. You've deleted yourself off the internet. And I think the reason why you did it is because there's a physical security component. You were swatted at least once that I know of, maybe twice. And for those that don't know swatting, maybe you can describe the experience of being swatted and kind of what led you to deleting yourself and kind of thinking so much about security.
Yeah, only the one time. Swat me once, shame on me. Don't let that happen again. Basically, this is a form of physical attack that is very low risk for the attacker because they're not putting themselves in any physical danger by doing it. And it's really annoying because for a very, very low cost, and we're talking like tens of dollars if you have the right skill set and you know which tools to use, you can direct an insane amount of state-backed lethal force at pretty much whatever target you want. And so that's what happened to me. One day, I find myself, my entire 400-home suburban neighborhood barricaded at every entrance and exit. Dozens of cops, SWAT team with their mobile headquarter command unit down the street. And it was an overwhelming display of force. And because that's what SWAT does. You basically use the correct trigger words, and in my case, it was shot people, had hostages, had explosives, and I was going to hurt more people if I didn't get money.
Just so people understand, somebody called the police in your area and said, at this address, all these things have happened.
Yeah. So, swatting started out in the video game community, but essentially what it is someone finds your home address and then they pose as you or as someone who knows you and says, there's an incident, an active shooter incident happening at this address, and this is the person who's doing it. And of course, in my case, I fit the profile because I'm well known to have more guns than I can count. So it was plausible, I suppose, that I could have done that. And, thankfully, the incident ended well. It was actually a bit of luck because I had posted something to Twitter when I was not at home and I was at the gym at the time. And so the attacker thought that I had just rolled out of bed. And so I actually ended up running into the police barricade coming back to my house. If that one little thing had been different and I had actually been home at the time, my encounter with law enforcement might have ended very differently.
So obviously it's scary. And you go on this whole journey of, I got to figure out what information is about me out there on the internet. I need to kind of delete myself and really start thinking about physical security. Walk us through maybe some of the steps that you took. And what I would love to do is kind of take us on a journey from as far external to you, security-wise, all the way to what Casa is doing with the actual security of Bitcoin. But you first have to start with, can people find you on the internet? Can they locate things? Like, walk us through that journey.
Right. And I still have an internet presence, right? And I'm still here. I took the difficult path. The easiest and smartest thing for me to do would have been to delete all of my accounts, stop showing up to stuff like this, stop putting my face and my name out there, because that's how you get targeted. It's a very long story that we won't go into because you can read it all on my blog, but I did end up finding the guy after about 5 years and spending a lot of money. I did find the guy. He was some 15-year-old kid living in his mother's basement. And it was a happy ending in the sense that nobody got hurt. But in order to prevent someone from doing that again, because like I said, 15-year-old kid basically, fell in with the wrong crowd, had the right skill set. They egged him on to do this because of things that I was saying on Twitter. So that was what made me the target, just being a public figure, and you have a large enough audience, there's inevitably going to be a few crackpots or a few people who are willing to do things that might harm you. And so if you're not willing to completely go off the grid and you still want to be out there, then you have to figure out, how do I harden myself? How do I make it so that no one can actually target me and put this lethal force directed at me? And so that's the really hard thing. On the bright side, in America, we have a number of legal opportunities, entities that we can set up to essentially obfuscate our publicly registered property. But this takes a lot of time, effort, like you have to find the right attorneys who have expertise with structuring these things. And that is only the beginning. That is like the beginning of probably at least a 5-figure investment just to set it up. Going beyond that, though, is the lifestyle change. You have to never leak your address, never associate it, with your real name. And that is the hard thing. You're setting up like other phone numbers, other post office box addresses for receiving mail and stuff like that. And basically, in some cases, lying. You have to get very comfortable with just not telling the truth about associating your real name and address. So I have an alias, a pseudonym. The people, my neighbors, where I actually live, don't know my real name and what I do. They know the cover story. And that was probably the hardest thing. It took me like a couple of years to really get comfortable with that and not make mistakes. And it becomes second nature. And I think that it's still okay and a moral thing to do, and it's legal to do, as long as you're not entering into like a legal contract or using this misrepresentation to perpetrate some sort of fraud.
What is your alias?
Nice try.
We recently have seen a number of incidents around the world. You document these on your Twitter account. Everything from what I think people think of as like the $5 wrench attack, where somebody's hit over the head while traveling abroad somewhere, all the way to the Ledger co-founder was recently kidnapped, and there was kind of a ransom demanded. What are the things that you spend the most time thinking about from a safety standpoint, that if you were to sit down with folks here one-on-one and say, hey, here's the 3 things that will have the biggest impact to keep you safe?
Well, I deal with the security of keys and assets. Like, I've been working on self-custody products for over a decade now. And I think that that's also what most people tend to veer towards, is like, how do I set up my keys? How do I set up, a distributed vault so that I don't have a single point of failure? And essentially, that's the only way to protect yourself from what we call a wrench attack. Basically, if someone takes you hostage, if someone is threatening you, you are under duress, then all of your security and authentication mechanisms become worthless, because you are capable of authenticating and bypassing, whatever schemes you have set up. So the short version is, like, if you, from your house, or especially from your phone, if you are able to move substantial amounts of assets quickly, just in one location, then that means if someone points a gun at you, then they can force you to move those assets over to them or to one of their compatriots. So that is like the single point of failure that you want to avoid from a security perspective. And the only way to do that is to get those controls directly away from you. And we recommend doing that by using multi-signature setups, basically having multiple keys distributed around physically, and each of those keys has its own set of diverse security protocols. And a big part of this is just time. These type of attackers, if it's a wrench attack where they're actually coming and doing a home invasion or kidnapping you or whatever, they want to get in and out. Like, they don't want to be holding you hostage for a really long period of time, because the longer they're doing that, the more at risk they are of law enforcement coming in and finding them. So the longer it takes and the harder it is to actually move substantial portions of your digital assets, the safer they're going to be. But people should not conflate the safety of your digital assets with the safety of your physical person. These are two completely separate problems, and the physical security of your person is a very well understood problem. We have been dealing with this for all of human civilization, and so there's a lot of good resources out there for how to work on that. But the thing that I try to impress upon people, because as you said, there's some billionaires in the room. I'm sure they have bodyguards and security and stuff. Most of us are not at that level, and we don't really want to be. The best investment that you can make is in your privacy, and you should think of your privacy as the outermost layer of your security. Any security system should be a multi-layered system, because you should expect any given layer, authentication, protocol, whatever, may be bypassed. But the more layers you have, the harder it is. It slows down the attacker. And once again, attackers want to get in and out as quickly as possible. And if you have that privacy layer, if that privacy is strong, you don't even get targeted in the first place. And so none of those layers of security are even going to get probed.
When I think of the market today, there's like individuals, and I know that there's a lot of folks that are trying to figure out custody solutions. We've seen people say, hey, I'm just going to buy the ETF because I don't have to worry about keys. There's people who use these third-party custodian services, and then there's people who use products like Casa. Institutions are not going to allow fund managers to walk around with the private keys in their pocket. They're going to demand whether it is qualified custodians or multi-sigs, things like that. So talk a little bit more about the products that you guys are building, because I do think that there's a friction point that you're adding, which will slow down these attackers, but also there's just a pure security standpoint, right? Actually being able to, even if you're not worried about somebody coming in kidnapping you or a home invasion or something like that, it's just a good protocol so that if you get hacked or your email is compromised or something that could be not physical security, but just kind of digital security, these products are actually pretty valuable for.
Today's episode is brought to you by Gemini. The future is being built today, and the future of currency isn't dollars, euros, pounds, or yen. It's crypto. And Gemini thinks that's a great thing, because a future where money is decentralized, inclusive, and globally accessible, that's a future that we are anxious to be a part of. Gemini teamed up with futurists, technologists, and designers like award-winning artist Matt Griffin, known for his illustrations for Dune, to craft a vision of the future with crypto at its core. The creative theme, Go Where Dollars Won't, emphasizes exploration, growth, and the crypto market's limitless potential. Whether it's going on that Martian safari to capture an unforgettable photo of a herd of woolly mammoths grazing the red planet, or using Bitcoin to pay for your lift pass to go strata skiing down the mountain peak of a breathtaking comet. Whatever adventures we'll be living, one thing is for sure. In a future this fantastic, the limits of traditional currency simply cannot keep up. Financial innovation will usher in this new frontier, and so go where dollars won't with Gemini. Go check them out at gemini.com/go where dollars won't. Again, go check it out at gemini.com/go where dollars won't.
Today's episode is brought to you by Polkadot. Polkadot offers secure, scalable, and decentralized blockchain technology that perfectly aligns with the needs of innovative projects. It was developed by Gavin Wood, one of the co-founders of Ethereum and the creator of Solidity. Polkadot aims to build an internet where users have full control over their data and their applications. Polkadot offers tons of unique features, a shared security model, along with the new auction model and significant implementations like ASIC banking. Given these characteristics, it's easy to understand why Polkadot is gaining more and more traction in the cryptocurrency world. Some people even are talking about it as the AWS of Web3. Now, companies such as Mythical Games, Astor Network, and over 50 other independent blockchains with hundreds of applications already leverage Polkadot's technology to power their platforms. If you're looking for a reliable, scalable, and cutting-edge solution, Polkadot seems to be the top choice for industry players. Go check them out today at polkadot.com.
Talk a little bit more about the products that you guys are building, because I do think that there's a friction point that you're adding, which will slow down these attackers, but also there's just a pure security standpoint, right? Actually being able to, even if you're not worried about somebody coming in, kidnapping you, or a home invasion or something like that, it's just a good protocol so that if you get hacked or your email is compromised or something that could be not physical security, but just kind of digital security, these products are actually pretty valuable for it.
One thing that I will say about the ETFs, they do resolve that issue of the single point of failure where if there's no way to withdraw, then of course, if someone points a gun at you, you can't move your assets over. So an ETF does solve that problem, but you're making a big trade-off. You are trading that off for all of the risks that come with third-party custody. And if you understand, like Bitcoin, read the white paper, then that's kind of the whole point of this whole industry, this whole ecosystem, is to get rid of trusted third parties. But people have the freedom, if they want, to use trusted third parties. I try to implore people to understand that third-party custody is just somebody else's self-custody. So it has all of the same risks. It's like the Venn diagram is you have all of the risks of self-custody, and then third-party custody is outside of that. The entire, self-custody is inside, and then you have all the third-party risks. The third-party risks basically being all of the employees, insider attack risks, infrastructure risks, and even, like nation-state risks. Like if everybody puts their money in the same custodian, it becomes a honeypot for any number of different attacks.
When you're thinking about best practices, so somebody uses the Casa product, they use multi-sig, all this stuff. Who do I give the other keys to? How do I think about the protocol for the treatment of those keys that somebody else has, right? Because I think that people are like, oh, multi-sig is just this great thing, but it's kind of like, if you go and you gave the keys to criminals, they'll just collude against you. Yeah. So how do you think about selecting who holds the keys and what those protocols look like?
Yeah, and this is why I would say our advisory support is one of the more important aspects of what we do at Casa, because multi-sig is not panacea. It's not, oh, you just have multiple keys and now you're automatically safe from everything. I mean, we've seen people who set up a multi-sig and then kept all of their keys at their house. That doesn't really protect you from anything. I mean, if your house burns down, that's a problem. If you get a home invasion, that's a problem. So this is why it's a very personal issue, because everybody has different connections, different friends, family, maybe attorneys, semi-trusted people that they might be willing to act as key holders. And that's why thinking through all of these decisions is something that we can help out with. It's certainly possible to set up, multi-sig where it's only you. Then you just have to decide, where are the other geographically dispersed locations where I put it. And if you don't have, multiple houses or residences or offices that you can disperse them amongst, then you're probably going to be looking into various high security, like safety deposit box type setups.
And do you think that those safety deposit boxes and things like that are okay if you've got the keys split, or do you worry about, we've seen plenty of like civil forfeiture and things like that. So kind of, maybe peel back a little bit more and talk about some of the nuances of where you're putting those keys.
Yeah, I mean, any given safety deposit box, really any given person or organization that might be storing a key for you, you should assume could be compromised. And so that's why the true strength in a well-architected multi-key setup is diversity. And it's diversity in every possible vector, whether it's diversity in the hardware that it's stored on, the software and the firmware the keys are stored on, the geographic locations and the possible, weather events or natural disasters. The more diversity, the better. And the reason for that is that we have to assume that things will go wrong. We have to assume that humans will make mistakes. And the more differences there are between the different security protocols that are protecting each of your keys, the more likely it is that any given type of failure will only affect one of them and not multiple.
How do you look at corporations. We're talking a lot about companies putting Bitcoin on their balance sheet. So far, every company that I'm aware of, they're using qualified custodians, and shareholders are not even thinking about self-custody or anything like that. Do you see the world kind of going that way, and the self-custody at the corporate level ends up being kind of the state we end up in? Or do you think that there's kind of this element of when lots of people around the table like price, but they don't maybe understand Bitcoin, the natural thing is like just replicate what's in the traditional financial system and like give it to somebody else?
Yeah, no, I mean, third-party custody is the default because of how people get onboarded into this space, generally through some third-party custodian. And it's also the more convenient option. So I kind of see what I've been doing for the past 10 years is actually fighting against human nature. And it's a fun battle to fight, because really what we're trying to do is make self-custody as user-friendly, as easy as possible, because third-party custody is always going to be easier. It's always going to be easier to pawn off all the risks onto somebody else and say, oh, well, if it all goes haywire, I can just blame it on them, right? I don't have to worry about my job. So to answer your question, I think, probably most corporations will go with third parties, even if they're not actually legally required to do so. But we have built solutions at Casa where we can help you, set up, architect, and maintain a self-custody system. And that works really well for either larger companies or like remote companies where you already have employees that are geographically distributed.
Talk a little bit about security while traveling, because one of the things that you opened my eyes to very early on was, you go and you use the Wi-Fi somewhere, you go into a hotel, you're at the airport, all these things, they're things that convenience has really, empowered people in society, but it has opened massive security vulnerabilities. And so maybe when you travel, what are the things that you're paying attention to? What are the things you're doing to mitigate those risks? But still, you do have an X account, you do go places, you do kind of live your life. So walk us through maybe what that protocol looks like. Again, kind of that layer right above maybe where Casa sits.
Yeah, this is tough because actually, most hotels KYC. And I booked a hotel this morning that actually did a KYC and liveness check on the portal while I was checking out. Not like when I got to the hotel concierge, but as a part of the actual purchase process. So that's the direction we're going in. Now, if you want to get crazy with this, there are ways where you can basically get IDs, legal IDs, usually from other countries that basically have an alias or a pseudonym, don't have your real name on them. I still use my real name, but what I do is whenever I am asked for my documents, I give my passport. And the reason I give my passport is there's no address on it. And so, this fulfills the obligations that they want. But once again, I don't trust really anything or anywhere that I go. So a hotel room is not secure by any means. The safe in the hotel room is not secure. Unless you bring your own safe and bolt it to the floor, it's really not secure. But there are things that you can do to improve your security. There's various travel devices that you can get that will actually act as a better lock, on your hotel door. Pretty much every hotel door can be easily bypassed, either physically or digitally. The digital ones are really scary. Usually a $50 flipper chip can get through most of those. But as long as we're not talking about going through border control, you can generally move around fairly
What about
privately.
Wi-Fi and stuff, right? I think that's one of the areas where people get on a plane, they're in an airport, they're at a hotel, they connect, all of a sudden, I've literally sat on planes next to people who pull up their bank accounts and do all kinds of crazy stuff, and you're just like, do you know that everyone can see this right now?
Yeah, that's, people don't really think about the man in the middle. So we say, not your keys, not your coins. Not your Wi-Fi router, not your internet connection. They could be depending on whether it's encrypted or not, they could be basically seeing all of your traffic, or they may only be seeing sort of metadata parts of it. So I use a VPN 24/7 on all of my devices. That just adds another layer of obfuscation to it. But none of these things are perfect. Whether we're talking about privacy or security, there is no one silver bullet. It's just sort of the aggregate of doing many, many different good practices that make you a harder and harder target.
Before I let you go, who is the ideal client for Casa, right? When you say, hey, is it people with a certain amount of Bitcoin? Is it people who have a certain public profile? Is it corporation? Just walk me through, who do you guys see the most success with?
Well, I think for any sort of entry-level multi-sig, when you have enough Bitcoin that losing it would be a life-changing event, whether you're a whole coiner or it makes up a large portion of your portfolio, then I think it's worth starting to think about eliminating single points of failure. And that's just on the technical side. If you're a public figure, if you're talking about Bitcoin and crypto stuff all of the time, that's making you more of a target. That's when you may be a good fit for our highest level concierge service, where we provide advice not only about your keys and your digital assets, but about all the other stuff, the privacy and the security that surrounds that. Because ultimately, all of the privacy and security that's part of your life can then affect the security of your assets.
Ladies and gentlemen, Jameson Lopp. Fantastic job. Thank you so much for coming.